Okay, so we shall try this again. And the first thing I'd like to ask is, some of you do work with elementary students, correct? No?
Here?
Yes. As a teacher's aide? Okay, well, what is the first thing that maybe comes to your mind when you see skeleton? Okay, so yes, it's your bones, that's true. So do they do a whole variety of functions for us? The answer to that would be yes. And I would expect that you would know 2 of the 5 that you're responsible for. There again, like we said last hour, something that you know, you just don't know you know it. Functions of bones in the skeletal system. Let that sink in for a moment. Just slap yourself upside the head. Maybe tell a hamster to wake up. That's what I got to do. Or get. How did you know that without looking down? The hamster started running. You woke him up. Well, he gets breaks. Because you were thinking a half hour ago the hamster was running then. You gave him a nap?
Yeah.
Her? Him? Which? It. Did you have a little balloon too, like clown face and
the yellow coat.
Yellow coat? Oh, raincoat. That's Georgie, right?
He holds a balloon at one point.
Oh. Maybe you should turn around to ask the expert. There's the one on the float.
What interest is anything?
Oh, I thought you were on the float for homecoming. Oh, well, who dressed as the clown then? Oh, okay. I don't know why I thought yourself. I thought you were the clown. Well, we got 7 of them in here, so I don't know. It just confused me.
8.
Oh. That's the pot calling the kettle black. I think that's just a way of saying, you need to look in the mirror. That's what that really means. I didn't catch that one right away when you said 8. Well, if we said 7, who would be the one out then? I thought it was me, but I probably act like a clown, so it couldn't be me. So there's one we can be exempted from then. Who's that? Oh, you take your turns then, huh? Okay. Well, it's Monday, so. Oh, okay. Amanda's turn. Fair enough. Okay. So with that, yes, support, protection. And one of the things, think about, you are sitting upright. At least you should be. Okay? So it's a constant reminder to do so. So yes. So when we say support, and then you're sitting up straight. How's that possible? Yeah, it's your skeletal system, but there's something specific in your skeletal system that would do that. It's something that is vertical. Your vertebral column. Yes, which there are 24 of them, I believe. So, but regardless, your vertebral or vertebral column cannot stand up on its own. It'll just start swaying back and forth like this. So there must be something that attaches to it to provide that support. Which would be possibly what? You got a biceps, a triceps, a hamstring group. What do those maybe sound like? Yeah, muscles. Okay, so muscles attached to bones that provide not only just the support, but the movement. And of course, we said if you needed to hit yourself in the head like I do from time to time, certainly provides protection. There's 3. Okay, and from last chapter, what was the significance of calcitonin and parathyroid hormone? Do we remember? It was a tipping scale. It goes back and forth like this. But what was the significance of that calcitonin and parathyroid hormone? The first clue was calcitonin. So that must be a hormone that deals with what? Okay, so does that hormone force, well not force, but does it push the calcium ions into your bones, or does it extract it? I heard one response. And when we say it ends in "in," calcitonin pushes it in. The parathyroid hormone will cause it to extract. Okay? So bones also store minerals. So there's the fourth one. And how many of you had taken advantage? I think it was it November? It was supposed to be November 20th for blood donations, but was it the second day of semester finals?
No, it's the same.
Okay. So the Thursday before. Yes, okay. I knew it was a Thursday, but then why are we saying the second day? I couldn't remember if it was Tuesday or Thursday. So how many of you did donate blood for that? One. That's it? Okay. So when that blood is extracted, or you're donating it out of the body, that has to be replaced. Of course, there's lots of water in blood. There's hemoglobin that makes it red, but there's lots of blood cells, like erythrocytes that carry oxygen. There's leukocytes that help fight off these different types of germs that we're exposed to. But there's a third one that, for anyone who has cracked their skin open, or maybe they got a hangnail, and how many are nail biters in here? Nobody? But if you grab your nail, or even with a fingernail clipper, you cut too deep, or you pull it out, it starts bleeding. Well, how does that bleeding stop? It clots, that's what it does, but there's cells in the blood that cause it to clot. Starts with a P. And you stack these on top of one another in the cabinet before platelets. That's right. So those are your 5 functions. It produces red blood cells and other various types. So when you donate that blood, it's actually causing a response for you to produce more white blood cells, more platelets, and more red blood cells. Now, does that make a difference that, oh my gosh, it sounds like it's so beneficial to donate blood? Well, yes, it is, but it's not going to be unbeneficial for you not to donate blood, because otherwise we would never have a blood shortage. We do, because not everyone wants to do that. So if you had donated this year, has anyone done that prior to this year? So can you watch the needle get stuck into your arm? So you do it, it doesn't bother you. You know, I see a no. Okay. Anyone have a hard time finding that vein? No? Okay. Yeah, and so you're gonna feel a sharp poke or sharp pain. I don't know what it is they say, and if you're lucky, they'll hit it on the first try. And for the most part, of course, they're going to be pretty good at that. But those are some underlying functions of the skeletal system that we just don't really think about. The majority of this semester is going to be more so anatomy, okay? But there are some functions of the skeletal system that, in a physiological sense, that we would want to talk about as well. And on your handout, it should have a breakdown of different types of names, structures that you're responsible for. And the first one we see is on Friday, where it says Quiz 1, okay? And it's over the skull, okay? So keep that in mind. So when we look at the skeletal system, we've got, well, again, we went through some functions of what it does. And here are some different types of structures found on, in, and around bones. So when we look at this, the characteristic of you could say a long bone is going to be perhaps, I wouldn't say a debate, but yes, it's going to be bones that are long. But I want you to think about a hinge joint, okay? So just like a door swings on a hinge, so it's something that could possibly create a 180-degree angle all the way down to a 90-degree angle and then acute. Is that smaller than 90? Yes, okay. So can anyone think of a place where there's long bones that create that type of hinge joint? There's two places in the body, human body, that comes to my mind. Elbows and knees. That's right. Okay? So which one would make more sense to you, the elbow or the knee? You said elbow? Okay. And the significance of that, the reason we say long bone, it's something that is going to be long. And the type of length, of course, would be something that would be up for debate. So your upper arm bone is called the what? Yeah, I would expect that you would know this from health class, or is there a family development class that you take from Mrs. Paulson? Okay, so yes, this is your humerus, that's your upper arm bone. Does anyone know the two forearm bones? Okay, but which one, if your thumb is like this and it's at its side, which one is on the outside, the radius or the ulna? It is the radius, because when you pronate that or turn it over, okay, the radius still turns over. Now it's on the inside. Okay, and it's hard to visualize here. And yes, I do have a full-size skeleton in there, but you can't really do the articulations with that. But one of the things I want you to think about when it talks about standard anatomical position, your hands are at your side and your thumbs are like this. That's what you see pretty much every diagram of a skeleton or a muscle. They're going to be standing in this position. Okay, because there's different points of reference, like where joint attaches. Okay, your humerus is proximal to the shoulder as opposed to distal, further away from the point of attachment. So those are 2 points of reference, proximal and distal. Okay, lateral to the outside and medial towards the inside. Okay, then there's different types of terms that you don't have them wrote down, and there's no place to write them down. This is one of them things we want you to think about, that when you're sitting in an A&P class in college, you're not going to have everything provided for you. So if you think that something is significant, there's probably a good opportunity to write that down. Okay, so what do you suppose it means to articulate? Yeah, it's not that they connect, they come in close contact with one another. But one of the things that we think about is when we hear the term V8 in engines, V8s, V4s, doesn't matter. Does anyone know what your valves are in an engine? We'll make sense of this. Why are we talking about car parts? Now this will hopefully make sense. Does anyone know what your valves are in your cylinders? A cylinder is just a circle, okay? Okay, and a piston goes up and down in that cylinder. It's what provides power to the car. But every, 3,000 to 5,000 miles, you should get this changed. That is possibly what? Your oil. Because what that does is that lubricates that piston that's going up and down. Okay? It articulates with the cylinder wall. Because if you don't have that lubrication in there, what happens to your engine? it will overheat, it'll seize, and that is big time problems. Because again, that piston that's going up and down, because they're on opposite sides like this. If I wasn't talking, if this was on mute, saying, God, they're having a lot of fun in there. It's going like this. Woo! Yay! Got my good juice this morning. So, all right. So, yes, when those articulate with one another, they're coming in contact. Okay? So what happens is, what do you suppose, can that totally disappear? Nothing against any of your grandparents, okay? Have any of your grandparents said, oh my God, my knee is sore, I gotta have surgery on that? Because sometimes that gets totally depleted and you have bone rubbing on bone. Extremely painful. I'm not talking by experience, but it's no stretch of the imagination that this substance that's supposed to be there is not there, and you're having direct contact. That's probably extremely painful. Okay, so there's 3 different types of cartilage. You have articular, you have hyaline, and elastral, and fibrocartilage. But in this case, it's what actually provides the if you want to call it the lubrication, just like in your car. It provides that protection so that when you make these different types of movements, it's nice and fluid-like and pain. The biggest thing is probably pain-free. Okay? So again, the epiphysis is going to be the ends of those long bones, and that's going to be some of the identifications on your bone. Because in health class, you just name the bones only. Is that maybe correct? Because, like, for instance, on this, the elbow, okay, something a little more specific than that. That's called the electron process. Okay? Processes are names of different projections that stick off of bones. So not only is this just the ulna, but it's the electron process that fits into an electron fossa on your humerus. Okay? And that's where those two bones fluidly move across one another, and it fits nice and perfectly into that little depression. And that'll make more sense when we get to, that'll be the 3rd evaluation. There's 4. We do the skull, and then we do the vertebral column, then the upper appendages and lower appendages. Have you ever heard of the term axial and appendicular skeleton? Okay, so the axial skeleton, so I would venture to believe that's probably a medical terminology term. Yes? I would venture to believe that's a medical terminology term. Axial and appendicular. Axial is just going right down the center, your skull and vertebral column. Appendicular is your appendages, your arms and your legs. And again, there's a lot more identifications than just the bones, and you certainly see that when you look through some of those different types of names. Okay, let's maybe do those 2, and then that would be a good place to stop at the end of here. Okay. So then here is going to be, as it says, the shaft of these long bones. Okay, so right here in the middle. Okay, so your epiphysis is going to be the ends of these long bones, and then your diaphysis then, as you can see, is in the middle. It's the shaft of that long bone. And one of the things that just had popped in my mind when we're talking about this here, okay? When you go to, let's say, Buffalo Wild Wings, you have some people who are let me try that again. I can do better than that. There's some people that are traditionalists. I think I said that right. If you are a traditionalist, when you go to Buffalo Wild Wings, what are you possibly ordering? It's wings, but more specific. The bones in them, traditional wings. Okay, so that's one category, and the other one would be boneless. Okay, my point is, some people are really good at, gosh, they'll get those chicken wings that have the bones in them. My gosh, there's just nothing left but the bone and maybe some cartilage left. Maybe that's some of you people. Or you just get down to the bone and you might leave some behind like I do because it's such a mess, but it's so good, but who really cares? But one of the things that happens is that muscle tissue, okay, that totally encases the periosteum or the shaft of that bone. And sometimes what can happen with different types of trauma, that muscle attachment will actually pull that outer sheath of that off. Okay, now, parts of the problem that can arise from that, okay, if this, chances are the skin has been broken. Your skin does a very good job of keeping you healthy. Keeps things out that aren't supposed to be there. But what totally can happen is if that skin gets broke open, the bone is broken, and it punctures the skin, and it's actually sticking out. Besides the pain that person would probably go through, probably the biggest hurdle that they're going to have to overcome, besides getting that bone to fit back together the way it's supposed to, is what happens when the skin's broken. We're more prone to what? Infections. Okay, and that can be a big time problem, because how would we know that there can be an infection in the bone? What's it telling you here? Because what is in that periosteum? What does it tell you here? Okay, so it's a vascular covering. So what is going to be directly underneath that vascular covering? True. What type of supply? It has, blood supply. Because bones are organs, just on their own. Because they have their own blood supply, and they're constantly supplied with nutrients. It grows, okay? And one of the things I'm going to pick on, not yourself, but younger one of yourself. Okay? Because I can't remember how we got on this topic going vertical. I'm probably stopped because I haven't grown since 8th grade. Is that true? Well, if she says so, I suppose. But I really don't know when the growth spurt stops. How many of you think that you're not going to get any taller? It shouldn't bother you, but does it? I can't answer that. I'm not even going to give an opinion on that. Only you can answer that. And I wouldn't let it bother you. And if it does, I hope something you can get past or get over that, because it doesn't define you. The ACT test doesn't define you. Okay? And your grades don't necessarily define you either. Because if you had taken a final in here, there may have been something on the final that I'm not quite familiar. Why wasn't this portion on here? I really knew that content. That's what I'm getting at, where grades really don't define you as an individual. Your work ethic probably does. Well, I shouldn't say probably, it does. And attitude. Anyway, that's probably enough for today. So tomorrow, we'll go ahead and start with these two types. Okay, compact and spongy bone. And no, we're not cleaning anything up. The sponges. I told the funny. Okay, we'll catch up to you next time.